Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. This is first and foremost episode number 56. We've gone further and further as we continue to go. And today's episode is kind of geared with what's going on right now. Most of them are anyways, but at the same time we wanted to put a little bit of focus on something that would aid us at this point in time. And one of the things that comes up for a lot of people is how we shape and reshape our reality and world, because we seem to be recycling and finding a difficult time changing any part of it. But before we get started, I want to thank everybody for participating, being part of this, for your contributions, for your assistance, and so forth. And if it resonates, please support us. And just to get some of the details out of the way, so the first thing is, I would say to reach more people, because we seem not to be reaching as many people. There's always that little capping off and whatever else is going on at this point in time. So please share with as many people as possible. They can watch the replays or they can join us live. You can also subscribe if it's on a platform that subscribes, and you can click any notification or follow, do whatever, put a comment in. These are all things that kind of activate the sharing part of getting this information out. Okay, I am flying solo. Kimberly may join us a little later. I'm not sure when she'll be available, but right now I'm going to have to do all the controls myself. Okay, so we've co-created this today and we get to play some more, and we're going to really look at how we shape and reshape our world, our reality and world. One of the things that keeps coming up for a lot of people when we're going through this journey of life, they notice that some of the changes take forever to take place. And it's not only just the changes that take forever, we seem to be stuck in a pattern. Now, a lot of the patterns are with us. Then there are patterns of all the different groups and clusters that we have. And when I say groups, I'm talking about, some of the immediate family dynamics, and we have the extended family dynamics, we have the work culture, we have the friendship culture, we have the partnership culture, and then of course we may associate with different associations, meaning religious association or groups and communities or whatever it may be. And then we also see what is in our immediate community wherever you're living, and then extending further and further into wherever you are at this point in time, in cities and countries and so forth. Now, a lot of people talking about change and going through the process of making change, going through different stages of bringing in something completely brand new. And I know I talked about a lot of it in the past, where, we have to let go of our past, we have to let go of our attachments, we have to let go of how we, think and feel life as is. So these are all part and parcel of how we actually shift our own personal viewpoint and what we adhere to, that actually is part and parcel, or one of the main ingredients that actually shapes our own personal reality, which is reflected throughout all the connections we have, including our collective reality we call the world. So let's get started. Let's get to play with that today. So how do we shape it? Well, we shape our life. We shape our worlds, and we have more than one world. We have our personal world, and the first level of personal world that we have is the arrangement between our innate body, our human entity, our soul, and then also our mind. We can throw in the ego in there, but that's just a bonus thing that was put in there to kind of make things a little bit more interesting, which we're pulling. So that's the first level of what we can call shaping that world. That world is the world of you in this holographic projection that is representing you. And the you is made up. Okay? You're made up. You're made up of a body, which is an extension of Gaia, which is the extension of the human operating system in form. You're also made up by a human entity, which is kind of a soul that reincarnates on planet Earth over and over again and may take different positions and roles. So that is part of the makeup also. You're also made up of a soul, an interdimensional essence that actually has a specific signature that can reincarnate anywhere, but has now joined this connection. Then you have a mind, which is basically a powerful, powerful computer that allows us to connect with what we have around us and see what looks like a reality, what looks real, because it's not. It's all holographic projection from a field of pure energy, pure consciousness. And that is that is exactly what we're in the middle of, in it, and that's all that we are. Okay, so that is a specific makeup. Now, the body has certain connections to your family dynamics, the makeup of mom and dad, certain ratios and parts of it. We have the makeup of the lineage going into their extended lineage and families and so forth, bringing in certain characteristics, operating systems and so forth, and creating that in the body. Of course, the human entity is a combination of what it maintained and retained from all the different experiences. The soul, of course, brings in all aspects of it. That makes that. So that's your first world. Your second world may be your immediate family arrangement, which could be mom and dad if they are involved, if they're even around. Could be just with your siblings. It could be just your immediate family being your own partnership if one is there, children if one is there. That's another world we create. And there is an interaction with other aspects of ourselves we call children and siblings and partners and parents and whatever else. So that's your second world. Each time you go and associate with something like work, now you're going into that environment. So now you're playing in that world. That world is made up of you and all the playmates, which are other versions of you that are operating in different states. So there's that other world. Now you're going into a world of your extended family. If you're not in that immediate family, you're going into that extended family. You're entering another world. You're bringing your world and plugging it in to that world, and that world's a makeup of you and all the playmates, which are aspects of you playing different roles. So as you step into, you're going into different worlds. You go into a friendship and connections and whatever else, you're always stepping into what we can call a different world, a different playground, a different state and Of course, unless you're in your complete state of being yourself 100%, you adjust accordingly each time you enter any of these so-called worlds, so-called playgrounds. Now, these playgrounds are very influential in a very powerful way. You influence the playground in a way influences you. So there's an interaction that goes on. Now, you have a very specific energy, you have a very specific focus, you have a very specific direction and role that you play, which wherever you go, you're plugging that in, you're representing it. It doesn't matter if you're 100% genuinely your true self, or you're taking on a facade. You're still interjecting, you're still co-creating that world, either supporting it, expanding it, adjusting it, and so forth. Now, at the same time, the dynamics that are playing out in that world with all the different playmates, with their own different operating system and their own sharing and whatever that may be, you will notice that you will get a feedback. You will also be receiving that, which you have the option to internalize, utilize, and so forth, which can very much shape, redirect, or any part of what you experience in any other worlds, including the world of yourself. Each and every one will have some form of influence on you, but it's up to you how much of it you use. So those are the different worlds. And then, of course, you go into religion. There's that exchange that you're going wherever you go, wherever you interact, the interaction with the community, interactions with whoever, any clusters that you go. Each one is a representation of your playground, your world. Okay? And so that you understand that, no matter, and this is why I want to tie this in. Whatever changes you experience personally in advancing your consciousness, shifting your viewpoint, dropping any perceptional component of whatever you've adopted, will not only change your immediate world, how your body represents, how your human entity represents, how your soul represents, how your mind, and that whole unit, how it represents. Now, everywhere that you go, whoever you're associated with, you're now feeding that new version of you. And whatever's there in whatever worlds or playgrounds that you're going into, that will feed back to you. But now, because you are different, you will notice that you will be less open to just accept anything as an introduction into your playground, which will reduce the influence and the adoption that we take on of what you are playing in these worlds. So you're now contributing a change. They're giving you a feedback which you have the option to choose any part of it or none of it to interact or connect or whatever, integrate into your newly created world, because that newly created world, that new created you is always upgrading anyways. And it's up to you. And the same thing everywhere you go. You go to your work environment, you go to your family dynamics, you go to your religious whatever, and you're going to find that. Now, the other thing that you will notice as your world advances further and further and further, you will notice more and more mismatch wherever you're going to go play. Therefore, you're going to find those mismatches will become much more available and observed, that you'll get to a point where you will make a choice how much influence or how much time, or if any at all, are you going to go into those worlds. You may establish new worlds or new playgrounds, new playmates will come about, and where you upgrade the exchanges. So you have to realize that you're going to move from one to the other. Now, the reason I say how we shape our reality and world, it's all tied into that. We shape our reality and world by our interactions and our observations. Now, let me bring some of these notes here. So one of the questions that we have you ever wondered how we shape our life and our world? As some of you that have been following the work and have been doing work on yourself, you can tell how you've shaped it. You've shaped it by what you have observed, what you have learned, what was shared to you, what you have copied someone else doing, what has been handed down. We use all of those parts to shape ourselves, to shape our life and the world, which we can call the playground. Oops, let me write that better. Playground. Oops. Play. That's a U. Okay. So our playground. Nice way to make a mess, don't I? Oh well. Anyways. The world will be representative of your playground, wherever the playground is, because planet Earth is a playground. That's what it is. And we have other sub-playgrounds within the big playground. It's like you saying, okay, I'm on the world, but I'm going to go to Wonderland, or I'm going to go play in Disney World, or whatever, or I'm going to go play whatever. Those are different playgrounds with different themes and different operating systems within the same playground. It has some form of consistency, but there's another form of make-believe, if you want to call it that, to give you a different experience. And this is the same thing. So if we wondered how we shape our life, that's how we do it. We take all this input. Now, how much of the input we take, how much we adopt, how much we give power to it will be very much the ingredients used to shape your world, your reality, your experience. It is the main ingredients that you plug in to what you're doing. Now, if you are bringing in an extension, or if you want to do an extension of, say, your family dynamics, and here you are, the family dynamics indicates a certain way of life. This way of life, whatever it is, may be culturally based, may have some religious tincture in it, may have certain self-learned through their lineage, handed down type of awareness and experience of sorts. So you're going in there and now you're receiving, observing, and selecting, and to some degree or another, consciously and unconsciously, certain things that are kind of handed down and are also as an offering because you see it. Now, we could accept it by it being told to us, this is how it works, this is what you need to do, and this is how it's done. Or you can also observe it in the sense where you're now watching what they're doing. Now, depending where you're at, and because there's an associated feeling and an emotion attached to it, you may feel, I want to replicate those emotions, even though the emotions and that experience and how they feel may be somebody else's, but you want to get a taste of that. So you may now observe and say, well, I want to replicate some of that so I can feel this way, whatever that way will be. A lot of times we have family gatherings that may have a lot of mixed energies, mixed communication, or whatever it is, but there's an adopted idea that just the fact that we're coming together, we feel good. For example, we come together for Christmas. It doesn't matter how the dynamics is or anything of that nature. Who says who's bragging what, who's acting up one way or another, who's demanding something versus another, and so forth, or even if there's a harmonious state. It doesn't matter. But we've associated coming together for Christmas is a family thing you do. Yeah, it could be tradition, it could be from a collective perspective, it's how you, it's it's expected. It needs to be done, you know. And then there's a feeling to it. Now, it doesn't matter what the feelings you experience while you're going through it, but there's a feeling or a wanting of that feeling or replication of that feeling to go into that environment to go play for Christmas. And that can apply Christmas not only with family, could be with friends, could be with work environment, could be, you know, with different groups and organizations and so forth. I mean, there's so many variations. But I'm just saying right now, these are some of the things we can associate. So if we see the family doing a certain thing and they, you know, they're representing something, it doesn't matter how they feel because you may not be sensing that, but you're seeing and observing whatever is playing out for them, and you say, well, I want some of that. So you now adopt that and say, well, if I do this, or I copy some of their actions or choices, then I may feel that way. So we plug that in and we start shaping our life with those ingredients in there, with those ideas, concepts, and observations that we've made. Totally optional, totally free how much you put in and how much you don't. It's all up to you. Now, so that's one example. So you're going to notice that you either take it in or you're being told, but the choice is still yours to accept any part of it. The other thing is, there's also connections to certain parts where, you know, because of a gender that you're in, or because of a cultural thing that you're bringing in, or a racial part that you're bringing in, whatever that may be, you may have a tendency to say, well, because I'm this representation of physical form with colorations or whatever that may be, or that I've been brought up under a certain belief or faith or something of that nature, I need to plug this in. And that choice of plugging those things in and utilizing those parts will shape your personal world, how you express and experience yourself, and then the associated connections that will come about, because the associated connections are based on you. Because what you represent, what you are, will open the doors for different connections. It just doesn't just drop there and say, well, I'm just stuck with it. Because it doesn't matter if you're not in association whatsoever. Either they don't want you, you don't see each other, or the fact you make a choice not to play there. Because it doesn't reflect and support who you are. That's the difference. Okay, so now that we're looking at all of this, right now, a lot of people are going through the questioning, self-observation. I want to change my life. I want to reshape my reality. And I want to reshape the world. Reshaping is taking its original shape and start to modify it, adjust it. Shaping means that you're actually changing how you play the game, how you observe the game, how you focus on certain things that are playing out and what you feel and don't feel, whatever it is. Because all of those parts make up what you call your reality, your world, your immediate world, and then all the extended worlds. So we're wanting those changes. And this is across the board. Many people are demanding or requesting or want to see that happening for themselves and also throughout the world. But that requires us now to kind of look at everything that we've adopted. We got to look at our cultural streaming of what is acceptable or a way of life from our culture, from our gender, from our family dynamics, from where our family comes from or where we were born. What we learned and experienced through our life, from our community, from our friends or partnerships or whatever they may be. It is a matter of start looking at all of those things and say, okay, how much of those ingredients do I still want to plug in to my reality? Or use that to shape myself. Because you're always constantly shaping. This does not stop. The shaping part never stops. The reshaping happens also. But the reshaping only occurs when you make a change in the ingredients of focus and directions and what you apply and don't apply. Or else you just keep shaping the same thing over and over again. If you're holding on to various traditions, those traditions are going to play a role to reshape or continue shaping the same reality, same experience, same way of interacting. We got to keep that in mind. Our holographic expression, who we are as this world of whoever, in this case Franco, with the makeup of those parts, which is all different levels of consciousness and frequency that are combined together to create this expression holographic on this playground. Those are required to even be on this playground. This is why the body is involved. And the body is harmonized with what we call Gaia, the world, because it is an extension of it, but it also operates within those frequencies. It's all there so that we understand. So the thing is, we're shaping ourselves constantly. But what we've done, we've attached to this idea that I want to reshape, redesign, expand. But at the same time, we have this thing called an attachment to our existing world, an attachment to what we've been doing as patterns, as a way of life. So that, as long as we have those attachments, so anything that you're attached to means that it continues to be one of the ingredients, and could be a very powerful ingredient, that is supportive of reshaping or continually shaping the same thing. Let's put same here. So if we have an attachment to a way of life, then that way of life is going to keep you in the same state. It's going to keep you in the same way of experiencing life. Let's put it this way. Your reality will reflect it the same. Now, we have to understand that it's impossible for us to replicate anything 100%. It's impossible. Why? Because for us to replicate in the field we call the playground, we call Earth, which is constantly upgrading, constantly activating further and further higher frequencies and so forth, changing the capacities of what you can express. But that is changing your body. Your human entity is upgrading all the time. Your soul is upgrading all the time. Your mind is upgrading all the time. So in fact, even if you hold on to any form of attachment, each time that you're experiencing any part of it, it is somewhat diluting, and it will never be 100%. It becomes less and less and less. This is why we found that some of the things that we've been holding on to as a way of life has become more difficult for us to experience, has become more difficult for us to just experience it in the same way because of those changes that occur. It's impossible to make it exactly the same. Now, there is a sameness. Say with the attachment, you're able, each time you only be able to do 99%, and then next time it's 98%, and so forth, 97%, and it could drop down to 90 as things change further, because every time we get a burst energetically, new codes, upgrades, or anything of that nature, the replication of any attachment. Now, I'm talking about attachments here, or attached, I should put it attached. Yeah, okay, attachments. I'll leave attached now. But attachments, we have to understand that I'm referring to attachments that are designed from its original construct, that has not and is not upgrading. We're not talking about attachments, because any form of attachment limits, because it doesn't matter. If you're holding on to anything, it limits. Even if you're holding on to you, say, okay, I'm at my highest state of who I am. I'm the highest version of myself, and I want to attach to that. No, it doesn't work that way. This is my highest version, whatever it is right now. And I'm allowing it to continue to advance, continue to upgrade, continue to expand. You can't attach to anything, because everything is in growth. Everything is in expansion. Everything is in redesign. Everything is in upgrade. Everything is in transformation, transmutation, and so forth. Nothing is consistent, cannot stay consistent. We can replicate a version of that so-called consistency, but it never feels the same. It never plays the same. Specifically now, it was easier before. If we're looking back a decade or two, even a year or two, it was easier. But we're talking about now. We're talking about where we're at now, and as we move forward. You will notice, if you want to hold on to a certain thing, even a sensorial experience that you've deemed as something amazing, that's changing. It doesn't taste the same, doesn't feel the same, doesn't respond the same, it doesn't give you the same experience whatsoever, because everything is changing. It's designed that way. We're not here to be stagnant. We're here to grow, more enlightened, to be able to reach more higher states that have never been even experienced. And I'm talking about the soul wanting to advance further than it's ever been able to advance. The human entity, the same thing, wants to advance more than it has. The body wants to advance more than it ever has. And those advancements are on planet Earth, within the solar system, galaxy, and universe, but also in other playgrounds, because again, really, the field which we're in is the makeup of everything, is where we are. Okay, so we cannot maintain, doesn't matter if attachments or not, maintain that consistency. The world is our playground / playground. And we have to understand, that's us. We're commanding, we're asking, we're desiring a different world. A world that supersedes what we've been experiencing. Right now, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, what we're in the midst of everything that's playing out, is an accentuation, a spotlighting of our old world, of our old reality, our old reflective systems. That's what it's about. Because one of the questions people ask, why does it not change much? Why does any change take so much to make it happen? Like every time we want to introduce something new with ourselves, within the different playmates or what we call groups that we play with, and in the world, it takes so much to make it happen. What does that mean? Things move slowly, incremental. There's always resistance. There's always a fear of change, and there's always this hierarchy, and then there's all this rhetoric and red tape. I'm just using some words here just to throw it in there that actually slows down any progress. Of course, attachments are attached to that, because of that. We're afraid to let go of any part of it because we want to hold on to the new. And every change, why doesn't it take such little steps? It's really up to us. How much change, how much upgrading we do, how we redesign, reshape what we call the world, how we play with each other, how each sector of the planet responds, reacts, plays, and experiences, how we are interconnected with all of that, how we respond, connect with also all sentient beings, including the sentient being of planet Earth. All of it is life. There's nothing that is not life. There is nothing dead. There's always life. Science can prove that because even somebody dying may not be this holographic projection that looks like alive, but the body changes. All parts of it changes or leaves and plays other roles. But even the body is made up of life force in it that, yes, will deteriorate the body. What looks like deteriorate will transform the body from one form to blend back into what we call the planet, nature, whatever you want to call it, from that holographic expression. So it takes so much to make it happen. I gotta get fancy with this. It takes so much to make it happen because of those resistance, because of us holding on, collectively of course, and of course personally, holding on to the old world, holding on to what has been achieved. Now, one of the biggest challenges that people have, if you invested a lot of time, say in a relationship, in a job, in a certain education, in acquiring stuff, and then all of a sudden we get to the point of saying, well, I want to change everything. And the change could happen pretty instantaneously, in a way. But it's not changing that quickly because we invested so much time. We almost want a return. I want the change, but I still want that in place because that is a confirmation of the hard work, the time, the effort, the resources that I put into it. One of the things I found with people is that I studied all these years in college, universities, and other methods to become this so-called specialist, expert, or this particular profession, whatever that may be. I can't let it go. Yeah, the world may be totally different because you have to look at it. Most of the stuff you may have learned, which is pretty well the fact, everything that you pretty well learned, was all construct of the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, where everything is absolutely opposite. The game of life has been shown as opposite. Let's go back to stuff. Well, you acquired a home, you acquired cars, you acquired luxuries, whatever it is, or just basic essentials, whatever you want to call it, that may have taken you years to get there. It may have taken a lot of sacrifice, a lot of giving stuff up to make it happen. Well, I don't want to let go of that. Now, I'm not saying that that has to happen, but as long as we have an attachment to it and we're not going to be open to see something else, it will stop you from moving forward and reshaping your life accordingly. Because the thing is, we want change, but there's always this, I got to have my familiarity. I guess I said that right. I want these things that are familiar. I want these things in my life that actually represent something because of all the hard work and time and energy I've put into it. And of course, it slows things down. So it changes slower. But now look at it, what's happening right now. What is happening right now? We are being challenged. We are being pushed. We're in a field where everything seems to be pushing us to the max in challenging any consistency we've ever had before. The systems that we relied on, the different authority groups that are fictional anyways that are plugged in there, we've relied on politics, we've relied on different industries like medical and educational and all of this other stuff, police, whatever, everything that we've attached to, and that's all crumbling, it's all changing, all this other stuff is coming to the disclosure. Now we're not seeing exactly what it was seeing, but at the same time we're also being pushed so that the stuff that you can actually give yourself to do before, which may have not been your preference in the beginning, but you kind of adopted and said, okay, I'll suck it up, I'll play it here, I'll go do this. Now all of a sudden, what's happening? And I say all of a sudden, but it's been happening for a while. We're noticing that it's getting harder and harder to adhere to any of that stuff. Because what is happening? You're changing. Everything is changing. Everything is destabilizing because the fact you want to bring in these changes. You want to completely reshape yourself, all your different worlds, including the world we call Gaia, or the main playground. And this is why we're feeling and experiencing all this. But at the same time, all of the stuff that we're feeling is actually activating a higher aspect of ourselves. Because the more you connect with the true essence that you are, more you become you, it becomes so much easier to let go, change, reshape every part of it. The more we are in the ego's world, the more we are in the definition, assignments, and labeling that is very representative of that old world, it seems harder, it plays out to be more challenging, more difficult to experience any reshaping of your worlds. So look at it right now. We know it's time to change a lot of things, and we've started this some time ago. Our first phase was in 87, second phase in 2012, or the end of 2012, 2013. Now we're in the third phase, which is 2020, and we're having some other powerful changes going into 2021. And even just before that, actually. But at the same time, which I shared on the previous episode, which I shared the update. But anyways, if you want to check it out, you can. But we're going through all of these things. And so these changes have been coming in. And these destabilization that we're observing right now is because of those changes that we are bringing in, because we want to redesign it. But as long as we're holding on to all of this stuff that has to be, we can't let go of the way we've done things, it becomes an obstacle. So let's go through it a little quicker. So the question we have to ask, what is so glamorous in maintaining a particular way of life? Life and a specific societal standard. What's so glamorous about it? How many of us hold on to old traditions, hold on to different ways of life that were handed down? How many of us feel that we need to hold on to this oh, I lost the word. I had a good word for it, but I don't remember it right now. This way of life where we're looking at the world and saying, hey, you know something? This is, darn. Now I lost another word. It needs to be worded differently, I guess. We get glamorized. That's a new word, possibly. It might exist. Glamorized with things that we've experienced before as a way of life, where we put our energy or anything of that nature. Like I was saying, we take on a way of life and we make it glamorous that if I've got all this stuff and I've got all these toys, I've made it. I am successful. I am good. I am this. I'm esteemed. I'm more powerful, or whatever it is. And we glamorize that. We glamorize successes. which is an interesting concept, which I will talk about at some point. This, what success even means. But at this point, the idea of success or entrepreneurship or anything of that nature, I'm not saying there's things wrong with it, but if we're not allowing it to adopt and or adapt and shape and reshape it and look at the amount of energy, we glamorize it. We glamorize coming together and playing a particular role. We glamorize what it meant, you know, how our family experienced things, maybe 1 or 2 and 3 generations ago. Look how much we've glamorized Christmas music. Most of that music is ancient in a sense. But we glamorize it. We have associated. When you hear that, it feels good. Does it really feel good? Does that frequency of that music really feel good? Or did we associate a feeling to it? In most cases, we associated a feeling to it. That's what we've done. So let's take a look at this even further. We glamorize other people. We glamorize the fact of somebody's life. And we have a tendency to want to aim that direction, and we do what it takes to get us to that point. But that means giving up more of who you are. I know in observation you could say, oh, they're the cool group, they're the cool people, they're in the media, they're famous, they dress a certain way, they act a certain way, you know, they've been put on a pedestal or whatever it is, and we make that glamour, and then we try to replicate it and so forth. As long as we're doing that and maintaining that particular life and a specific society standard, it can't easily upgrade. We can't change it. Now, of course, if you're going through a change and you start looking at that, you're not going to be paying attention to it any longer because it doesn't feel in resonance for you. But we have had a tendency to glamorize ways of life. Glamorizing other people. Glamorizing a certain pocket of having yourself in a group or having a certain social status and so forth. Glamorizing what the families may have represented. As long as we're putting a lot of focus and attention on that, we're not allowing it to morph and change and shift and upgrade and so forth. So the reshaping doesn't happen that easily. There's always a bit of reshaping all the time, but once we get online with that, it reshapes very quickly, very, very powerfully. So it's a matter of dropping the glamour of anything at this point. And when I say that, I say don't put that as your goal, your direction, or that I have to hold on to that. You just start letting that drop. Now, you don't have to get rid of things. You have to, basically what you're doing is letting go the importance, what it represented and all of that stuff. That stuff may still be there, but it no longer has the same impact or the same influence or the same power to shape your reality. Okay, let's move on some more. Oops. Let's bring it over. Okay. So one of the other questions is, how important is it to you? It doesn't say that to you. Is it to maintain traditions? How important is it? It's a question we have to ask ourselves. Tradition of doing things a certain way. Tradition to be involved in certain groups or certain people or whatever. Traditions to repeat what was done a long time ago. A lot of traditions were created in different states of being in different levels of understanding, in different levels of consciousness, in different times, in different energies. So traditions get established and it's just handed down. I know people, when you start to go through some changes, you start to question, do I still give power to this tradition? Now, you could say, okay, I want to maintain some traditions because I get a certain kick out of it, or I have a certain experience out of it. However, the question to you is, how important is it to you to maintain any form of tradition? Because as long as it's important, it is involved in shaping your reality, limiting the reshaping. If it's not important, then maintaining any form of tradition not only is optional, it's upgradable, transformable, and it can have a different experience altogether. But as long as it's not important, you can observe what it represents, how it keeps you, or anything of that nature. Because the one thing is, when you're playing with the tradition, you're connecting. So let's take a tradition. Poor example, but I'll give it. This is a cluster of consciousness. This is a cluster of consciousness. Once a tradition is established by one and more people, you create a cluster. And in this cluster consciousness, you're building in people's experiences in this cluster. It holds a very specific energy. So it has a specific energy and focus. Energy, focus, intent, and so forth. Now you have to understand this cluster may have been created several decades ago. Some go back thousands of years, or 1,000 or so. But anyways, some religions still hold on to these traditions that were done 700, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. Just to give you an idea. So anyways, a tradition was, a cluster is in there. Every time you replicate or experience, go into this tradition, you're tapping into this cluster. This cluster has a specific energy, a specific focus. And what is it going to do? It's going to play a role, an influence of your own construct of how you're going to experience things. It will play a role for you. And that's pretty cool. That's okay. However, you need to pay attention to this. Because you still have the option of how much are you going to use of it or not. But you're going in there. So, how does these traditions come about? They come about by certain individuals thinking, okay, let's do this next year again. Or let's do this next month, next week, next day. Let's establish this as something that we're going to do. Now, because of that, that was established, this thing to do, at that point in time, you're going to involve different individuals and whatever else, and what that feeling would mean. Now, that, say it was done 4 decades ago, or let's go back, what, 400 years? Or 100 years ago, okay? 4 generations, let's play with that, easier. 4 generations ago, that was the original, or origination of that cluster consciousness we call tradition. Of course, they had a whole different belief. They had different access. They may have not had anywhere close to the awareness and consciousness that you have. And for them, that felt good because this cluster energy felt like home. So this was their home. The question is it your home now? That's where it changes. So when you're really looking at all of this, you ask yourself, well, how important it is? Well, if it's not important, then you now observe a tradition and decide if it fits into your experience and if it actually shapes or maintains an older shape or allows you to reshape a lot of similarities from that. This is why I say people come into observation. For example, somebody observes something, whatever that may be, and they come up with an observation, an idea of what that represents, what that is. Guess what? To them, it makes perfect sense. To them, based on where they're at, that's natural. That's the way it needs to be, whatever that may be. But how does it apply later on when we started to see things differently? When we started to observe that there's more to it than it was at the time. Like, for example, imagine you living your parents' life or your grandparents' life when they were younger. Definitely the playground was different. Definitely the people that they played with was different. Definitely the energies were different. Definitely the awareness and consciousness was different. Much more minimized, for sure. The availability of technologies, of options, of communications, and so forth were very different. Yeah, it may be, we've put it, glamorized it and say, wow, that was a better life. That was better in the past or anything like that. But I would be quite surprised if you actually went back into that time in your current state and tried to live that life. Where a lot of the things that we take for granted right now didn't exist. Yeah, maybe it would have been a lot simpler. But you can create a simpler life here too if you wanted to, with some options, of course. So the question is, how does the tradition make you feel? Is it something that even applies to you today, or something that you want to do? I know in my own personal life, I looked at a lot of traditions. Some things we maintained, like, yeah, if we can, and if it actually feels conducive, we'll get together at certain times of the year. Is it a mandatory, a must? No. Totally optional. Who's involved is optional. A lot of the stuff that we were doing before we don't even consider anymore. But we've looked at it. But is it really a tradition, or is it a desire to say, hey, let's just get together? Yeah, Christmas is coming, Easter is coming, or whatever, Thanksgiving is coming, whatever that may be. Whatever other excuses we have, there's millions of them. That we'll get together. Is that a tradition? It doesn't have to be. But yeah, it's nice to get together. It's an excuse to get together. But it has to be fully coming from within you that you want to participate or not. So, how much value do we need to give to history, passed down ways of life, and rules and belief? Good question. How much value do we give to history? What happened? The educational system puts a lot of focus on it. A lot of other things put a lot of focus on it. A lot of cultures and groups put a lot of effort and time in it. You possibly do too. Well, like anything, whatever happened in the history, It's all perceptually based. It was all catered to whatever the experience was there. It was catered to where the consciousness of people that were involved at that time, could have been you in another body, or as a soul or as a human entity or whatever. Didn't matter. History is history. But if we put a lot of attention and focus on what happened, what should or shouldn't have happened, then that very much changes the way you experience yourself, the way you experience the shift or reshaping of your reality. So history, and then we have to understand a lot of history is not accurate. And why is it not accurate? First and foremost, whoever observed it and documented the idea of the history, it's their perception, their viewpoint, with whatever minimal understanding they may have had. Their perception could have been totally skewed because of whatever they thought to perceive. A lot of times history is being changed because a certain narrative wanted to be plugged in. Wanted to change the accuracy to make it look better one way versus another way. They may wanted to glamorize it. They may wanted to demonize it. There's a lot of different things. Plus, you have to understand, what was the perception, what was the observational point of that particular documentator at that time that put this together, documented it. This is all effective. Now, a lot of it is passed on as a way of life. Rules were established and beliefs were established. Religion is huge for that. All of this stuff that we are passing on as a way of life, that keeps getting handed down. Even the idea of money, the idea of exchange, the idea of having, leaders and groups and authorities and so forth. All of this stuff passed down. Traditions that were passed on based on that and whatever. So the more value we give to it, the more these old beliefs that were passed on will dictate what you do, how you do it, how much you apply any part of reshaping your life in a total reality on this world. We're talking about changing the world, shifting it. We need to say, okay, some people say we got to learn from the past. Yeah, a little bit, maybe. Because we are in a completely different platform right now. You cannot look at the past. The past, especially the last 10,000 years, 10K years. K years was under an inverted matrix. That means everything was backwards. We were in the inverted 3D and 2D. Where everything was constructed for one reason, and that was to devolve. It's not about evolve, devolve. To create limits, to create restrictions, to create a reality where separation, polarity was the main operating system. Where truth became lies and lies became truth. So, history was created under that. Those rules were created under that, and those beliefs were created under that. This is why you question everything. And when I say question, you don't demonize it. You say, hey, how does it apply now? Does it actually match me? Is it what I want to experience? Is this part of the shaping of my personal reality and the reality within the world? You will have to question every part of it. And many of us do it even unconsciously, because a lot of times you're looking at it and, that doesn't feel right. I'm not playing there. I'm not doing this. You're going to see every part of it in that way. So this needs to shift. How much value we give to any of it. So when we say we've got to learn from the past and anything that's been handed down, remember, all of this was under this construct. And most of us don't have any record of the first 5K years that was our natural design. That blueprint only is within you. So that way you can't look at your records. Mind you, we don't even have records for 10,000 years. We have some cases as far as 1,000 or 2,000, but here in bits and pieces of it. And remember, it's like the telephone thing. You can pass it on and it changes, because a lot of history has been modified. Like I said, with a certain narrative, a certain letting people understand things a certain way, but all of it was constructed in that regard. So something else to look at. Where does all that is passed down, our current way of life and system, come from? Oops. Okay. Where does all that is passed down, our current way of life and systems, come from? We have a way of life right now. We have a lot of different systems. We have a lot of different tiers. We have all these ideas of how one country versus another country operates, how a male and a female operates, and all the other combinations within it, based on culture, religions, and so forth. Based on whatever programming. They're all coming from there. When you're looking at all of that, and you say, okay, where's it coming from? Well, a lot of it is coming from groups of people that decided that, hey, this is the way it is. And they're just passing it down. Of course, like I said, it was all constructed. Let me bring this up. All constructed within this inverted matrix, inverted 3D. So we have to look at it. Because is the systems that we have in now really match your state of being? Does it really represent who you are today? Is it allowing you to flourish, or is it still holding you in survival? Is it allowing you to be truly yourself, or you have to create these facades and you have to shift your focus and energy in those areas? These are things you look at. Is what's been passed down as a way of life and all the associated systems. Like you take a religion and say, does this religion actually exist or actually support us at this point in time? In fact, is it actually a good representation of who we truly are? Because if it's demonizing good, bad, right, wrong, or saying this is evil and that's that and whatever it is it really the truth? Or a perception of a long time ago under a certain narrative, a certain control structure that came into place when the inverted matrix was plugged in, inverted 3D, 2D, for the very purpose of enslaving, reducing, whatever we want to call it. They're just names. Experiences are just experiences. Because right now, every system that we have, every organization, to some level or not, from 100% to 10%, is archaic, no longer applicable, and it is in total requirement of redesigning or elimination. This whole idea of economies, the whole idea of money, the whole idea of deities, control structures, the fact that we have to have all these militaries and so forth, all these systems that support that. We have a certain type of mentality of how our world actually works and how everybody has to be programmed, conditioned, to have to be the same, have to be cookie cutters, like they say. Very interesting to look at. The question is, where does it come from? I'll give you a simple answer here. The simple answer is, if it's not currently designed with an open platform to see how it actually best serves, then it is completely for complete review, redesign, or elimination. Yes, there's some transitional part or bridging that may be occurring or may be requiring, but that's it. It's just that. Our systems are ancient. Our systems are from that inverted matrix. Our structures and so forth are all from that construct. And they all require complete review, dismantling, disposal, or what you can call removal, elimination, and reconstructing, redesigning, based on the most current application that we could apply right now with the opportunity to upgrade. Everything has to be fluid and upgradable. So it's a question to ask, especially when we're going through what we're going through. What happened to my other? Uh-oh. Did I lose some of them? I didn't think so. I know there was some more, because there was 3 more. I guess didn't make it on here. All right. Sometimes when I save it, I don't save it at the right spot. It disappears. That's okay. Is there any questions? Kimberly's joined us now.
No, not yet, honey.
Not yet. Man, I covered everything. Good.
Well, that's good.
All right. Since I got the little control here, I just wanted to remind everybody to share, subscribe, and so forth. And I had a little banner that I wanted to put up to remind everybody we have a workshop this weekend, the 5th of December and the 6th of December. Okay? Let me see if I have it still up here.
I'll put the link up.
Kimberly's going to put the link up. I had put a banner for it, but I don't know where I put it now.
I don't see it.
Well, that's pretty interesting. I still have the controls because Kimberly arrived a little later, so that's why I'm looking for it. There it is. I found it. So I'm going to put that up. There we go. All right. So we have a workshop, like I said, this Saturday and Sunday, December the 5th and the 6th. It's called See Beyond Your Current Perception to Live a New Reality. So, we all adopt perceptions. Perceptions come from a lot of resources, a lot of other experiences that others have handed down. And a lot of our perceptions come from that inverted 3D, 2D, inverted matrix construct. Perceptions create patterns. Perceptions create a way of life. Perceptions shape our reality. And as long as we're seeing the same perceptions, hold on to those ideas, programs, and belief systems, that very much it doesn't allow us to experience a new reality. So today's episode very much relates to that, seeing beyond your current perception. Now, it's not only our current perceptions, but also the perceptions that we've adopted from others, well-meaning people that have shared with us. A lot of perceptions come from what we have been exposed to through media, through different other groups and organizations, including educational systems and so forth. We've adopted. But now is the time. We say we want to experience a new reality, a new world, and guess what? That means we got to see beyond our current perceptions. So the workshop is designed to help you through that, to work with you, kind of hands-on in a sense, because it's a live-streamed workshop. Now you can also get the video and audio recordings. If you're live stream with us, you get the video and audio recordings anyways, but you have the option at this point in time to be with us live. And if you are with live, it's interactive. Now, we will do a lot of processes. We're going to use the opportunity to give you tools, and we're going to use some of those tools live. And we're going to go through it so that we can create a shift, so that we can see beyond our current perceptions. All of us have different variants of perceptions, but some of the perceptions are shared in those clusters I was talking about, and some of these perceptions are more globally, and so forth. Like we were talking about here, a lot of our perceptions are passed down and become a way of life. And where does it come from? Many, many perceptions are ancient, are from a whole completely different way of looking at life under a different understanding and so forth. Of course, like I said, very integrated, very fueled by what we as known as the inverted matrix, inverted world that we lived up to this point in time, and now all the unraveling that is occurring. So Kimberly, can you say, is there anything you wanted to say about this workshop?
No, I was going to actually ask you, do you want me to post the video you did about the
Yes,
workshop?
we did. Well, we did. We did a video. You'll see it in any of the platforms that you may be on at the moment, where you would see that banner. So Kimberly will post it again, but it's also in the description and it's in the comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, the description will get you to their page to get the information. Now, the beauty of this particular workshop, it's donation based. We have the recommended amount, but you can offer whatever you feel, depending on your financial situation or condition or whatever you want to call it. We wanted to make sure that monetary restrictions was not going to be utilized for you not to get on to be able to join us. So this is available live streamed with video and audio recordings, and also to get just the video audio recordings if you can't be with us, because it is from 11 a.m. in the morning till 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on the 5th and also on the 6th. Now, it depends on where you are in the world. You know, it may be in the middle of the night and may not be so easily arrangeable for you to be there, depending on what you have during the daytime. Some people are hardcore, they do join us live stream. But if you can't, then you can get the video audio recordings, and if you're busy or tied up with something, then you can still do that. Now, you also have the option to be on one day, and you don't have to be on the second day, because if you're not available for both days, you can mix and match them. It's really there. So it's donation based. You go to the link that's in the description. You go to the link that's in the comment section, the link that Kimberly has posted there. It will take you to the page. That page gives you a whole breakdown of what's all involved in the workshop. And then there's also a video there that actually goes through all the points. It's actually a mini workshop, really. Whatever platform you're on right now, we also have put the video there too. So if you look back, you'll see it, see beyond your current perception to experience a new reality. Is that what I called it? Yes. Then you will see the video there, and it's about an hour and 14 minutes long approximately. And then, of course, in the description, there'll be just a link. It will take you again to that same page. and then you can just register as soon as possible. It's available on Vimeo, and also we have, if you have a difficult time getting onto Vimeo, we have a YouTube link also. These are private links so that the people that register get access to it. So share this information to as many people as possible. Again, this was put together because of all these changes that are happening, all this stuff that's going on right now. Some of the other stuff that's coming up starting on the 12th of December, going into the peak point of the 21st of December, which will carry you right into the 12th of January. And then we have some powerful changes, including another huge modification going into April of 2021. So these are all powerful tools for you, and this is why we're doing it, and we're doing the donations so that make it available to as many people as possible. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Oh, I was just going to say, I haven't been able to post it on the YouTube chat. I have to switch identities, I guess, to yours instead of mine. No, I think the weekend workshop's going to be really great because it's going to be like a really honed in, focused on what it is we really need to be looking at and doing and creating right now so that we really take it to the next level of change with each one of us, because it's all up to every individual to do this. And so it'll be pretty cool. I think it'll be a good workshop. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. We're so excited about it that I am planning to show up, and so is Kimberly. So, yeah, I want to be part of it. Maybe I'll be the one standing in front doing all of the work, but anyways, with you guys. But we're going to do a fantastic job. So, that is our episode for today, since we don't have any other questions, comments, or anything else that we wanted to share at this point in time. Now the answer is, how do we shape and reshape our reality and world? It comes right down to us and what we put our focus and what we play with at this point in time. Because as long as we are still focusing, putting our attention, our energy, and our time into the same, all we're going to do is reshape something very close over and over again. If we're putting any attention and energy and so forth of what the past may have been or what anybody else has lived or whatever the media is streaming, because, listen, what the media is currently streaming, what is being still shared today by many, many people and many, 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 many organizations and services and so forth, is still aiding to shape that older world. And this is why you're seeing a lot of the seams coming apart in that older world. Because remember, everything is still very much, because it's going through that transformation, what I was saying earlier, related to this, the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, that we are still purging. Now, it's no longer streamed, it's no longer active, but everything is still, because a lot of us are still looking at that world and still reflecting it. So, anything else?
I'm just seeing inside because I switched to see if there's more. There's a question here.
Okay. If not, we'll wrap her up.
There is one question. It is there any way to find out natural matrix life look like? So what does the natural matrix life look like? That's the question. Is there any way to find out?
Okay, well, the thing is, we are now in the organic matrix. And I've said before in other episodes, and I've shared in some matrices are a construct operating system for each and every planet. So each and every planet has an organic matrix. The matrix actually allows us to be able to see the world the same way. How we interpret it, how we experience it is individualized, and our contribution is individualized. The matrix is something that we see as reality, that holographic expression. What we see as solid is this organic matrix. The operating system within it, how we understand and how things work, is part of that matrix. To be able to see ourselves in physical form is still part of the matrix. Now we have our own personal matrix, and we have, of course, what we call planetary matrix. All matrices are upgrading constantly. They're all online with other planets in our solar system, and we have more than what is demonstrated at this point in time, or seen at this point in time. But at the same time, it's also coordinated with a lot of other solar systems and so forth. So every planet is upgrading and doing whatever it's doing, and it's feeding it back. So how do we have that example? When we connect with ourselves, and we're now seeing things for what it is, what it represents where everything is harmonious, it's oneness, it's supportive of one another. The organic matrix is about growth and expansion within unity and cooperation and collaboration. It does not project separation. It does not project self-destruction in any way, shape, or form. It nurtures every facet of its expression. Okay? Our natural matrix is working together where everything supports each other. For example, in its natural state, the environment is not something for us to survive in. The environment is something we flourish in. The environment, meaning all sentient beings, all nature of all forms, including Gaia, is supporting us to flourish. We are not under attack by nature, by the animal kingdom, oceanic kingdom. That is still the very inverted matrix that needs to be deprogrammed. We're not killing each other. We're not destroying each other. We're not competing with each other or anything of that nature. Our natural state with the what we call organic matrix creates an environment where we can be absolutely ourselves, that does not require us to go into survival mode or that to put a lot of energy in focusing on doing something that will make us so-called survive. There's another word, I can't think of it right now. Because the thing is, our true nature with the organic matrix, it allows us freedom to not only express, but to experience, but to connect with everything and get feedback and learn from it. In our organic matrix, in our own organic matrix operating system, the necessity to eat is not a requirement. We get the energy from the sun, from the air, the water, and all of that. That is our true operating system in our organic matrix. Needing to work and needing to do any of that stuff for survival does not exist. The inverted matrix says you have to sacrifice, suffer, and so forth, or take advantage of other people or whatever to be able to flourish, or to be able to have more than somebody else, or to basically survive. The organic matrix does not show that in any way, shape, or form. There's no control, ownership, and domination over each other. In the organic matrix, it's a sharing that everybody shares. So most of all the constructs, all the systems, from the military to the police to the government to the medical systems to the educational system to the religious systems and all the other systems that piggyback on top of it and that exist as a way of life, is all constructive in the inverted matrix. None of that is required in the organic matrix, which is where we are integrating more of that. That's just giving you a little taste of it. So a matrix is a requirement for us to play the game together. But the original matrix, the organic matrix, which continues to upgrade and has always upgraded even when we weren't utilizing it, has provided us the opportunity to be able to be ourselves and to experience ourselves, and also to hold a lot of different frequencies and operating systems that other brother sister souls from other dimensions in other forms would be able to come and play here on this matrix, on this planet, because the matrix was encoded to be able to host them, to be seen, because again, they have to plug into our matrix to be able to be seen. Their holographic projection cannot show. Now, they won't have limits, which we perceive as limits because of the fact that we've played in this inverted matrix. Then, in the organic matrix, anything that we create will be nurturing, supportive for everyone. It's not like destruction of one end to have a benefit on another end. We're no longer going to create structures to control humanity, or to dictate humanity, or to create compromisation for humanity under a different illusion of progress or whatever it is. That won't exist. Will technology advancements exist? Absolutely. But it's harmonious advancement. It does not compromise anything. It does not compromise people. It doesn't compromise nature. It doesn't compromise the planet. It doesn't compromise any sentient being the animal kingdom, oceanic, birds, insects, you name it. It doesn't compromise any of that in any way, shape, or form. It's all harmonious. And then these technologies will make our advancements with more ease without limiting our capacities and capabilities. It gives us the opportunity to have more free time while playing the game of life without going backwards in the sense of going back to the Stone Age or anything of that nature. So those are some of the other tidbits of that organic matrix.
There's one more question you can maybe ask. Do
Okay.
it quickly. What are the organic natural gender differences when living in organic 3D and organic 5D? Is there any organic gender differences in 3D or 5D, organic 3D or 5D? Like I know at some point we are,
well, in organic 3D and organic 5D or an organic matrix, the gender is not a main focus, and it is not categorized, it is not polarized, it's not, doesn't have a lot of different rules and discrimination of each other or anything of that nature. In organic, the gender does not become a dictatorship of what can be done, what can't be done, who does what, who doesn't do whatever, and it doesn't mean that you have to follow certain rules. There's no separation of rules. Yes, the genders take on a very specific role in the sense of a female gender can reproduce another physicality from the makeup or reproduce that part with the aid of the other gender in that nature. But the discrimination that gender means this or that, or one's weaker and one's strong or whatever, no, it's a complementary sharing that occurs. Now, a lot of, in the organic matrix and organic 3D and 5D, and specifically in the 5D, you have to understand that the focus on gender is very minimal. And as much as the genders were designed to play different roles in the sense of what its capacities may be, it's not what is being replicated or represented now by any means. It's been accentuated and divided and so forth. Who has the rights? Who doesn't have the rights? Who's more powerful? Who's this? None of that exists in when it comes to the organic part. the limitations that have been applied to, say, a parent or someone that produces an offspring, if you want to call it that, or creates another physical form, and the other systems are not from our organic matrix, because in our organic state, each child that comes onto the playground is exposed to many, many other people that will share their skill sets and their know-hows and so forth. The majority of the focus will be on what they would refer to as the elders, but the elders will be also known as the experienced ones that have had ample time to experience life and shares different wisdoms, but the wisdoms are combined and each child is still motivated to be themselves. But the sharing of experiences only activates their own knowing and so forth. So the restrictions of, playing ownership and control of the child and the upbringing of the child, or having an institution that brings up a child that creates those cookie cutters or creates a certain, does not exist in that organic matrix, organic 3D and 5D state where people work together collaboratively. So there will be kids that will work together with other kids or play with other kids and share with other kids, but then certain specific so-called adults or elders will actually work with them in expanding their viewpoint and so forth without the restrictions and without memorization and all of that stuff, because it's going to be very much experientially enriched, because everybody comes here to bring in, because every single physical form that comes on the planet is, like I said, the combination of the highest aspect of the human physical representation that is coming through from other different channels and human entity, and then soul itself too. So that's that part. Hopefully that brings that organic part together.
Yep. Good.
Well?
We're good.
Okay. So thank you guys. If you feel that this work resonates with you, you can contribute. If you feel guided to join us in the workshop, you definitely put your time to be there because it's well worth. But it's your call. It's not something that is mandated. It's your choice, your freedom. It's a tool. It's a journey that we do together to help you advance. And there are, we've made it simple enough so that we didn't complicate it or create any restrictions. Anything else to wrap up?
I think so. There's another question came in, but I think we're going to wrap it up.
Is it related in any way, shape, or form?
Just to the transgender stuff.
Oh, the transgender stuff.
Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
One last thing.
Last question. Will there still be people who want to be transgendered, transsexual like they are in our U.S. culture? Or is this a unique division and separation game playing out?
Yeah, eventually that will not play out. First of all, right now, the gender thing, because of its polarization, because of the fact of designation and so forth, the cross-gender came into play. There's nothing wrong with it. It plays out a very specific role, which is a blending and so forth, or a shifting. But all of that will actually stabilize because, again, it won't be concrete, being male, female, or anything of that nature. It won't have the same restrictions. Will there be a call to play with one and the other? It's open. There's not going to be a right or wrong, good or bad about it, but there will be less emphasis on it, and there will be a little bit more crystallization how it all plays out. Again, it opens up without the restrictions, but the focus that we've put in now of being cross-gendered or non-gendered or crossing, from one gender to another, or what each gender represents, all of that stuff a lot of those rigidities and all those rules and perceptions and so forth that were categorized and rights and wrongs and all of that will dissolve. So it kind of balances out in a very completely different method, and some of the cross stuff may not exist any longer from what I've seen, it will not serve a purpose any longer. There's nothing wrong with it, and at some point it will change. And it does not mean that, same sex can't play with each other or whatever that may be, but that kind of will change, and we'll lose all the stigma and everything else that's been there, because it'll become much more natural in a different form. So hopefully that answers it. From every glimpse I've had in any civilization that has evolved in different dimensions and so forth, that the gender thing becomes a very minuscule focus. The crossing over then doesn't even look like anything that it's even of any interest at the time, and if there is, it's becomes somewhat natural in any way. So it's right now there's a lot of going on that's kind of breaking down, and a lot of the transgender stuff is real because of all of the restrictions that we've had up to this point in time and whatever else. So yeah, okay, great. Let's wrap her up. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in the next episode. So there won't be an episode this Saturday because we're doing the workshop Saturday and Sunday. So the next episode of Advancing Consciousness series will be next Tuesday. But if you want to catch a really cool episode, which is 2 days long, join us for the workshop. Okay, great. Since I still have the controls here, I'm the one that's going.